Hello and welcome to Sao Paulo, Brazil. We are at the circuit of Interlagos for round 5 of the 2025 FIA World Endurance Championship. A welcome return to Brazil after a fascinating and thrilling race last year. A long time away from the country for the World Endurance Championship, and everybody is delighted to be back. Hello everybody, I'm Martin Haven, joined in the booth as ever by Graham Goodwin, but we've got rid of Anthony Davidson this weekend.
Finally.
And finally had to replace him with Darren Turner. Darren, a great track for racing cars and a challenging track for drivers as well, this place.
Oh, super circuit, and absolutely one of the old school circuits, amazing to drive. I feel bad replacing Anthony this weekend. You guys are giving him grief already, but it's really nice to be back at this circuit and having the chance to look around and just see what the championship's like.
So 4 races in and 4 to go. We will go to a month break before we head to Lone Star Le Mans and to Fuji in rapid succession, rounding out the season in Bahrain. So the traditional end of year will be at the Bahrain 8 hours. And although we have had a big slice of points already at Le Mans and from the early parts of the season, there are plenty of opportunities still to take championships. Now, in the dark jacket there, you can see our race director, Eduardo Freitas, working with the local crew. We've just had the Brazilian GT Championship out for practice and going to have a slight delay, barrier repairs, before the session gets underway. Graham Goodwin?
That's good news for our viewers and listeners, because they're going to get a bit longer a show this morning. I think that barrier was rather heavily AMG'd.
Well, that gives us a chance to have a little look around the garages as well. All of our regular contenders are here. Porsche look very strong in free practice so far. Ferrari have struggled a little. Cadillac maybe not quite as quick as they might have liked. There's Sebastian Bourdais will be driving car number 38 this weekend. And as for Ferrari number 51, Antonio Giovinazzi has just confirmed his new contract with Ferrari for racing in Hypercar, so that's really good news for the 51 team. What's not such good news is they're struggling a little for pace. Now, one of the things that's going to have perhaps a factor in how the race plays out, Darren, is that the track has been resurfaced for the first time in quite a while. And so that has changed the nature of the track in terms of how the tyres wear.
Yeah, I can remember coming back here many years ago and they just resurfaced and the grip level just went up to such a high level. And every reference you had from the previous time was sort of going from scratch again. Basically, you had to start again with all your setup and tyre information, etc. So for the teams that were here last year, they've got some information, but now the tarmac being different this year, it means some of that is a little bit irrelevant.
Well, let's take a look at this Sao Paulo circuit and figure out where we're going to see all the action this weekend.
So, as we're saying, an amazing circuit, old school Grand Prix track, still with lots of different types of corners. And Sector 1, Turn 1 and 2. I would say Turn 2 is one of the most critical corners on the track. Compromise Turn 1, get Turn 2 right, and get the speed onto the straight down to Turn 4. Into Sector 2. You've got Turn 6 up the hill. It's a tricky corner, high-speed corner. It's one of the places I think is where the traffic management comes in because of the fact that the hypercars are much quicker through here, makes it more difficult for those guys. And then absolutely Turn 12, the most critical corner on the track completely in terms of getting that drive up the hill, compromise the entry, get a good exit and just get that power down. And then for the drivers, you've got that long turn all the way through to the start-finish straight, loading up your neck.
Talking about necks, of course, one of the factors is that this is an anti-clockwise circuit. Now, there are 7, I think, in the Formula One calendar. We actually run 2 because we go to Texas next, and that's anti-clockwise as well. And it does bring a whole different level of physicality that you're not normally getting at the other tracks.
Yeah, I was in the paddock earlier just talking to a couple of drivers, and even after free practice 1, they were sort of saying that their necks are aching, just because it's not the norm. And that little run from Turn 12 all the way 13, 14, 15, there is lateral G on the car all the way around until you sort of come onto the start-finish straight. So it's a long time, even though the load isn't particularly high, it's just a long time to be loaded up on a side of your body that isn't normally having all the pressure.
5th visit of the WC here to Interlagos. First 3 years of the championship, 2012 through to 2014. And yet, yeah, Darren's absolutely right. That final year came just after a resurface with the GTE cars at that point at something like GT1 pace because of that extra grip. And again here, we're going a little bit into the unknown. We've had a day of practice yesterday. The grip levels, and more particularly the longevity of these tyres, is still in question. Taking a look now at our Le Mans winning car, the number 83 Air Corsa Ferrari. So listen what's going on for Robert Kubica aboard the car.
So at the moment, it's headwind into turn 1. Speed is 3 kph, so neglectable. Track temp is low, 20 degrees, and will only go marginally up.
Right, so negligible breeze. It's a little damp this morning. And if you didn't see all of Le Mans, what were you doing all weekend anyway? You can catch up with the highlights with our full access from Le Mans. It was released on YouTube on Monday, and it is well worth a watch. You can see all the behind-the-scenes story, a flavour of the week that you don't get when you're watching the race live even. See the behind-the-scenes action and the emotions that run riot at Le Mans. At the end of a long, tiring week, you get pain, heartbreak, and joy, jubilation, and all of that in full access. So, with a re-tarmac surface, more grip, although it was pretty low grip at the beginning of free practice 1. There was lots of debris as well. We saw the tyres picking up. But it does possibly restack the deck as well, because when the grip levels change, then some cars might suffer and some cars might shine, Darren, as a result, I guess.
Yeah, I think, you know, the teams that were here last year, they have got a little bit more information of running the hypercars and the GT3s around the circuit. But for the guys like Heart of Racing here with the Aston Martin Valkyrie, first time here, they're coming here with a clean sheet. They don't actually know where the start setup should be. They have a good idea. And speaking to a couple of the drivers yesterday, they found it quite bumpy. But you talk to the people that were here last year, they've said actually it's improved. So it just means that, you know, their starting setup probably didn't take into account the new tarmac that was done.
Interesting, isn't it? We get to a phase of this championship after Le Mans where balance performance a key part of the way in which this grid has been drawn together. And now we get into the stage where the performance of the cars in the first half of the season really begins to affect the way the values come forward. Aston Martin, a key one of those, came in, of course, with a 0 score in terms of data. They've now got those 3 races of data plus Le Mans. And yesterday, both cars in the top 10 and very much in the mix. One of the cars in the top 5 in free practice 1 and free practice 2. We'll see what happens when we get into the qualifying challenge of single lap pace. But at the moment, Darren, a car that you were part of the initial development team with, that's got to be really encouraging for the team. Let's have a listen to Antonio Fuoco's team.
So the wind is a bit sideways this morning, which means it's coming from the left in the main straight. So you have a tailwind exit of turn 4, tailwind exit of turn 12, headwind going into turn 11, headwind going into turn 9, but it's small, honestly.
In 10-1-4.
So as you turn into turn 1, you get the headwind at the apex, but under braking it's coming from the side. And turn 4, it's on your side when you brake. So
you see the flags hanging fairly limply in the air. Obviously the very recognisable Brazilian national colours, flag of the WC, and the other one, the white flag with the red cross, that is the colours of the city of São Paulo.
I want to go back to that question just before we heard the excellent weather information for Ferrari. Darren, encouraging signs for the Valkyrie. It's been a fan favourite for all sorts of reasons, the way it looks, the way it sounds, and I would guess that the guys and girls are looking for more followers on the basis of the way it goes as well.
Yeah, if you look at the results they've had in the first part of the season, they've just gradually been getting better and better. Reliability has been proven. Le Mans, what was their main goal? To get both cars to the end of the race, and they did a fantastic job. I don't think they had any of the cars in the pits at any point, as in the garages, so they achieved that, so super happy. And now second half of the season, they can start to look at the performance side of the car. A
huge amount of data, I guess, to bring back from that. Let's look at the 31 car. This is the Benzine WRT BMW, and it's all Brazilian colours, with Pedro Ibrahim replacing Timo Boguslavski, who's unwell. I hope you're watching and listening. Still work going on there, so it's going to be a while before we have time here. We are told more information at 10:15, by the way. Session start information will be given on a short call. It'll be given when that work is done, and then we'll go green, I'm sure.
Did notice also, Graham, from the overhead shot, that the bridge just before you get to pit in,
there was a tension there as well.
So that's obviously had a little bit of a barrier biff there as well.
But a bit of a knife edge here. We learned a lot the last couple of days around this track. Huge amount of work, not just resurfacing, by the way, that's been going on here in Interlagos. There's a massive new building sitting behind us, which is part finished but is being used to house a Brazilian motorsport expo, open to the public. There's some fabulous cars in there. And then further back, new administrative buildings, principally for Formula One here. Big amounts of investment going on here. Cars now being allowed into the working lane, so that is the first sign that we're getting to the end of that work. Richard Lietz and Rahel Frey in the Montai Porsche garage. There you go.
A shared language, of course, both of them, one Swiss, one Austrian, Mangal German.
Yes, and Richard, of course, again a race winner at Le Mans this year.
He is your lucky charm if you're in a Porsche at Le Mans and you've got Richie Lietz in. You're going, ooh, hello.
Yep.
It's almost as good as having Cooper in your car if you're into Europol.
Absolutely.
I found it really interesting, the Ferrari chat on the radio then, how much information they're giving about the wind direction, just showing how critical it is to these hypercars in terms of their performance. And it does look like the wind's picking up, so it's even going to be worse as the session goes on for them.
It's a good point to ask before we go to green flag running. You've been away from the WC for a little wee while in terms of an active role. You're coming in here into Interlagos. How big a step do you see that's been taken here?
It's huge, absolutely huge. I think 2019 was the last time I did the championship, and it was obviously back with LMP and GTEs, etc. And now with Hypercars and LMGT3, just fantastic. Such an amazing grid of cars out there with the manufacturer support as well. Huge grids of great drivers as well. So yeah, it's changed a lot on every level. It's just moving further and further, more professional, and just great to see. And just great to see how much the popularity of the championship's grown as well.
I mean, you took this job simply because you didn't want to pay for a ticket, I was told.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
I mean, there's going to be tens of thousands of people here, 70,000 plus people here last year. The weather, you've heard it in professional motorsport terms. Let's tell you what it's like. It's kind of 20, 22 degrees, overcast, cooling breeze. Very pleasant weather to actually watch motorsport.
Very pleasant, much nicer than being at home where it's 35 degrees.
Indeed. Imola last weekend for the European Le Mans Series in the high 30s, and it was just not fun at all for anybody. One of the big pieces of news here this weekend is the new Goodyear Eagle Hard is launched here. First time we've seen that option available for Goodyear to bring, and they've chosen to platform that here at Interlagos for the very first time in the WEC.
And part of the reason is that last year it was quite a high tyre energy, quite a high degradation circuit. Also, the temperatures were quite high last year. And as a result, actually, Michelin have brought the medium, there you see with the yellow sidewalls, and the hard tyre here rather than the soft and the medium, which you might almost expect with the temperatures that we've got. But that's one of the problems when you're manufacturing batches of tyres 6 or 9 months in advance and shipping them several months in advance. You can't immediately react to what the weather actually is. You have to react to what you expect. So, as ever, a choice of compounds here. You don't have to use them both. It's not like Formula One, The medium is going to be the tyre that's predominantly used, but Pierre Alves from Michelin was saying that it wouldn't be a surprise at all to see right rear hard tyre, maybe all right side hards, because he was explaining, although the track surface, because it's brand new, is less abrasive, what it does do, Darren, is give you more grip, and as a result, the tyre wears more rather than degrades more. So that right rear, again, normally it would be the left rear on a clockwise circuit. The right rear here is going to do a lot of work here. So that's potentially the Achilles heel for all of these cars.
Yeah. Estimated time for the start of the session, you can see now on the graphic, is in under 4 minutes time. Personnel and vehicles now moving away from the incident sites on circuit. Eduardo Freitas will be heading back to race control. The intervention vehicles will be heading back to their holding points, and when the circuit is clear, we will be going green flag running.
Now, worth pointing out that 7 of our hypercars are 2-driver lineups this weekend for a variety of reasons, one of which is the Goodwood Festival of Speed. That explains the absence of Ross Gunn from the 007 Aston Martin. The second of which is IMSA in Mosport, and that explains the absence of Alex De Angelis from the 009 Aston Martin. And the third of which is the Formula E doubleheader in Brazil, which explains the absence of almost everybody else, including missing a race for the first time since Job was a boy. Sebastian Buemi is not in the Toyota team. So number 8 Toyota is a 2-driver effort, Brendan Hartley and Ryo Hirakawa. So they're probably both quite happy, actually, that the temperatures are not in the 30s here.
Information pit lane. We are starting at 10:20. At 10:20 in 2.5 minutes.
Confirmation then that we will be starting.
You can allow them to the fast lane, yeah, I guess.
I think they've already done that.
Yeah. It looked like they're quite creative with the barrier repair down at turn 10 there from the Brazilian GT. Getting those concrete blocks round the back and
in between, I think, as well.
Yeah, it's like a quick fix, and hopefully this evening they can do a more permanent fix. But yeah, it certainly meant that we can get back on the road again.
This is often the case. We see Eduardo Freitas down there and overseeing, checking, making sure he's happy. Safety is the absolute priority for race direction here. Safety of the competitors, safety of the trackside staff as well. Great to see that process is in operation. And there you go, there are the red sidewall on the Goodyear tyres for the United Autosports McLaren. United Autosports from this point forward, of course, beginning their wind-up and their preparation as the now confirmed service provider for McLaren's incoming hypercar programme in a couple of years' time.
Yeah, really interesting that at Festival of Speed, McLaren have launched the road car version of the hypercar already. Getting ready to start FP3 here, the final free practice session. We've had 2 90-minute sessions yesterday, free practice 1 and 2.
1 minute to the start of the session.
And this will be an hour-long final run before we go qualifying this afternoon.
Sense of theatre here in Interlagos, isn't there? This fabulous new pit complex. Big step forward.
Getting ready for the session to begin. We're normally interrupted on a regular basis in the final minutes before it begins, but since Eduardo is down on the other end of a walkie-talkie, a little bit less so. So in 10 seconds, 5 seconds now, we'll have the session underway.
Away we go, green lights at the end of pit lane, and the field comes streaming down. 18 hypercars, 18 LMGT3s for free practice 3.
Darren, let's talk about the pit exit, because it doesn't feed in immediately into turn 1 and 2 for very obvious reasons. You come a long, long way out of the pit exit. In terms of building up the temperature in the tyres when they're cold, I wonder how much of an effect that has.
Well, at least you're not having to do it on the track. You know, you're not coming straight out into the middle of turn 1, turn 2 on a cold tyre. So at least you get that first little bit of the sector still in the pit lane and be able to get the temperature. But you can see when they come out on the track just how difficult it is without tyre warmers to get the temperature in the car. That's probably one of the biggest difference from when I did the championship. We always had the luxury of having the tyres preheated to pretty much optimal temperature and pressure. And now that's part of the art, isn't it, to get the tyres in and to be as quickly onto the pace as you possibly can without actually damaging the cold tyre. But you can see them all squirreling around at this point.
Interesting, we saw at Le Mans the formal reveal of Michelin's new for 2026 hypercar tyres, and one of the things they're building in to those tyres is a better warm-up part of it. It's not about performing better, it's about going longer, and it's about getting the heat into the tyres more quickly.
And people might be thinking at home, well, why didn't they do that in the first place? Well, the reason is the tyre was designed when tyre warmers were still a thing. Why haven't they done it since? Because the regulations and the request from the FIA and from WEC was to have a controlled tyre that we use for several seasons without changing. So it's an opportunity that Michelin are now taking to be able to re-engineer it for better warm-up.
Good moment, by the way, to point out that there is another big change, of course, in the broadcast this weekend. That is, today marks the public rollout of a brand new graphics package for the FIA World Endurance Championship. Lots of features already aboard. There will be more to come to roll out for the remainder of this season. So, different look to the screens you'll be seeing on YouTube, on the app, and on your broadcast partners for the remainder of 2025 and beyond.
Now, in the first and second free practice session, Porsche had the best of the times. Number 5 car was quickest in session 1 and in session 2, joined by the number 6 at the top of the pile. Last year, though, if you cast your minds back to qualifying, it was a Toyota front row lockout. And that used to be a very common occurrence before Hypercar really took over from the death throes of LMP1. But they haven't had that sort of qualifying domination this season, or indeed since then.
Tota last year, the standout performances for Tota in 2024 were the weather interrupted and affected Imola. It was the form here and the astounding run at the end of Bahrain from Sebastian Buemi to clinch the manufacturer's title for Tota. Don't count them out. In terms of what we've seen so far, though, Martin, it's been Porsche fastest in both free practice sessions so far, and in particular, notably, no real pace seen whatsoever from 51 Ferrari.
Yeah, the 51 car has really struggled, which is odd because the number 50 car hasn't looked so disappointing, and the number 83 the same. And all 3 cars swap setup information. You know, it is, talking to Ye Yifei on the track walk the other day, he said it is still very much an open book, even for the guys in 83, the customer car. They get to see the data from the other teams as well, and so they are sharing that. He said, you know, it is still about trying to win the championship for Ferrari, trying to win races for Ferrari. So they do have 3 dogs in the fight, and they all have a share of that information, and that's even more perplexing, perhaps, that 51 is still lost at sea.
But there is another emerging storyline in the World Championship, not in the World Manufacturers Championship, the World Drivers Championship, and that is the number 83 crew with that double point score, because they score points, remember, in the Drivers Championship, not in the Manufacturers. They're second in the points, and boy, do they want to be world champions too.
Yeah, absolutely right.
There you go. This is Michel Gatting's very much branded crutches.
Yeah.
Broken foot counted her out of the 24 Hours of Le Mans, but was out punching last weekend in the European Le Mans Series, and is here and on the hunt as well. The Iron Dames Porsche in full fettle, fastest at the moment out there in the hands of Celia Martin.
And don't forget, you can watch the entirety of Le Mans. It's on YouTube. It won't be on the WEC YouTube channel, though. Le Mans now has its own separate YouTube channel, 24 du Mans. So if you search for that in YouTube, you don't have to watch it all in one go. I know that there are lots of fans who re-watch it in installments. You can binge the entire box set if you have a spare 24 hours, 25, 26 hours actually, and that's just for the race. All the other content will be online there as well, so you'll be able to see all the qualifying and Hyperpole and everything else. And don't forget that qualifying comes up just after lunch local time here. We'll be on air from 2:35 local, and that is 17:35 Greenwich Mean Time, 18:35 if you're watching in the UK, Ireland, Portugal. So now then, we got okay, interesting little bit of Clarence there for Alex Lynn, trying to give himself a run to the line, Darren.
BMW's the top of the time in scoring. Dries van Toor now with a 1:24.287. Sheldon van der Linde just second, just at 1.7 seconds back as the car's getting up to speed.
You can still see the bumps there on the way down to turn 4. Tyre pressures are probably still not optimal, so maybe running a little bit low on ride height, but you can still see how bumpy it is in that approach under the braking zone there. But going back to the 51, I had a little thought on that, and it could be, you know, they're all trying, 3 cars, trying different strategies in FP1, FP2. Now, if they're still at the bottom, towards the bottom in FP3, you're then going to be sort of thinking, oh, actually, maybe they do have a inherent problem there. But yeah, when you've got 3 cars, you can have them all doing different options in the first parts of practice just to get some ideas and directions to play with, basically.
The other thing that slightly muddies the water in free practice 3, you can see where the Ferraris are, 14th, 17th and 18th, and a long way off in terms of speed. But the other thing that muddies the water is that the top cars are doing qualifying sim runs at the moment, so we're seeing quite a lot more pace.
009 aboard the Valkyrie after we just saw Milton Jakobsen pop up second quickest at the moment, the 94 Peugeot. Here's the glorious wailing V12.
And Alex has already passed the yellow flag at turn 7 that's now been removed, so hopefully he can finish this lap without any more distractions en route to the flag.
Yeah, a lot of bottoming out, isn't there?
Looked a bit nervous then on the beginning of the braking there. Looked a bit twitchy for Alex at that point.
Hirakawa takes number 8 Toyota to the top of the timing scoring, 1:23.695. All sorts of work going on here, Darren, in a free practice. We are going to see, I'm sure, some quali simulations at some point. What kind of thing are the teams going to be working through in these 60 minutes?
Well, we sort of mentioned off air earlier about, you know, how important qualifying is here this weekend. Long race like Le Mans, you know, if you're in the top 10, fine, no problem. You know, you've got a long time to battle forward. But here, like the history says, you know, if you're not on the front row, you've not got a chance of winning. So there'd be probably more focus on the qualifying performance than any other Grand Prix, any other of the races of the championship. So, yeah, one of the drivers has already probably been determined who's going to be doing qualifying, and they're going to be throwing some tyres and setup at them just to give them a bit of a run at sort of prep in terms of getting the best out of the car when it comes to qualifying.
Keep an eye on the rhythm of this session. Still 50 minutes plus to go. Say Porsche it was that topped both the previous free practice sessions. So far, we've seen Porsche and BMW, and now Toyota top this session, with Peugeot being as high as second in recent moments. In GT, by the way, it's been 2 sessions topped. Sorry, the first session was topped 1-2 by the Lexus. Aston Martin topped FP2.
Yeah, just got in the number 10 Aston, not the number 27 Harter racing car, the Racing Spirits Lemon car, just outpaced the 2 Lexus right at the very end of the session. So, yeah, that was interesting.
And it was local driver, Eduardo Barrichello, that put that time in for Racing Spirit Le Mans, so a great lap from him. And he's been real find this season.
Yeah,
Fantastic
he
to
has,
see.
hasn't he? And really good to, we had him in the booth actually in Qatar, his dad, and Rubens is the least karting dad you've ever seen. He is the smiliest, happiest presence in the back of the garage. Just, he was just so overwhelmed at seeing his son racing in the World Championship in Qatar for the first time. It was really fun to watch.
Watching the hypercars, of course, but GT, by the way, topped at the moment by TF Sports 33 Corvettes, 134.414. Corvette Racing of old, of course. You were well off their Christmas card list for about a decade, weren't you?
Or Corvette.
The nemesis of Corvette Racing.
I don't think it was that bad. I think we enjoyed a really good rivalry over many years, and it was always fun. And it actually, when I was in the pit lane yesterday having a look around, the Aston Hypercar with the V12, and then obviously the V8 with the Cadillac, and it sort of reminded me of those sort of GT1 battles with the Aston against the Corvette then. So
all the things of that era that made it so very special.
Now, you've heard from three of us in the booth. We have another member of the team down in the pit lane, Bruce Ioanni.
Dive into the first left-hander, and already so far people are pushing hard. They're braking super late, and we're going to come back a little bit later to see if there's an improvement, as rubber will be laid down on the track, and we'll see if anybody hits the 50-meter board for the brakes. But at the moment, they're already pushing hard.
That's going to be one of the key areas, Darren, to try and make sure that you rein in that front straight speed down and don't overcook part one of the center S's, because like you talked about, you have to sacrifice the dramatic bit that we all think of, that it's really sharply banked as well, the beginning of the center S's. You have to sacrifice that a little bit to get speed further on round in sector one.
it's 100% the corner you compromise, turn one. And obviously as the track drops away, it's the left front that's going to start locking up, or you'll be in the ABS, but you just can't let it push past the apex, because as soon as you've done that, you've compromised the line through turn two, which has a massive effect on the run down to turn four. So whatever you do, don't overcook the braking point. You might think, just push the brake in another couple of meters and gain a fraction of a second on the way in, but ultimately you'll lose a lot on the way out.
Darren, you were saying yesterday, watching the free practice session, about the entry into pit lane and what they will not be looking at. So there's an aspect of the pit entry they're not going to be monitoring for limits, correct?
Track limits, yeah.
Yes.
It makes sense. With the car speeds that they're approaching that pit lane, it's they're coming in super quick, and then suddenly if you've got to navigate round those painted lines and stay away from track limits, you're just making it a lot more complicated for everyone, and there's more chance of a mistake happen. So just being able to straight line it up until that 60k mark just makes everything a lot easier for everyone.
Yeah,
so
you can
cut a bit, yeah.
Both, yeah.
They're actually helping driver there, just being very very polite with the track limit at that point. But I'm glad it's not seen as a place to get a penalty, because it just makes life a lot harder for the drivers.
One to be aware of when we get into race. Replay here, and that's a big lock-up from the 15 BMW. That is Raffaele Margello.
Yeah, that's turn four at the end of the long, fast straight, and it is a big braking episode. The other thing that happens there is actually you can see that the track has been diamond cut in quite a lot of places. It was resurfaced and recut, largely because of lots of complaints about the amount of pooling water that they had in the Formula One Grand Prix towards the end of last season. Didn't seem to slow Max Verstappen down too much, coming from 17th to win, but he was certainly, along with everybody else, complaining there was far too much standing water, and so part of the resurfacing has been to address that, and lots of extra grooves ground into the surface to try and mitigate against standing water if it's to rain.
Was it hard? Was it not going on the right rear?
Yeah. Pierre Alves said that double stinting a medium on the right rear is going to be very, very hard work for anybody, as far as we can see so far in the hypercar, and that a hard right rear was certainly tried by a number of people, and I think probably more and more going to be the case. Now, in qualifying, you'll throw as soft a tyre as you can at it to try and get that grip, but once it comes to the race, you don't have enough tyres to single stint. You have to double stint tyres, so that it's absolutely imperative that they know. And actually, he was saying you may well see cars using hard right rear in the race despite not having practiced it, because they know they're going to have to. Okay, I've just been temporarily deafened by Bruce Joanny in the pit lane. Bruce, good morning.
Yeah, there's a lot of noise, sorry about that. I'm just standing next to car 38, and quite interesting, I was hearing you guys talking about bottoming, and they're already checking the wear on the plank, and they were worried about how much the car is bumping, and they're probably going to start raising the car, so it is bumpy out there.
Yeah, that's all part again of this change of surface, is that it has eradicated some of the bumps. The drivers were saying it's a gentler surface compared to last year, but it does change then how you're going to deal with the ride height. The 20 BMW, the one with the Shell livery, having a little wriggle under braking, yeah.
20's just come out of the pits recently, so I don't know if that's a cold tyre situation that's caught him out at that point.
You're right, that is René Rast at the wheel of the car. Attention being paid here to the 83 car on the inspection panels in the front of the 499P. Robert Kubica brought the car in. Meantime, change in LMGT3. Gianmarco Leverato takes the 88 Proton Mustang to second. Top six different cars, by the way. There is the 83.
I wonder what they were adjusting there. That's sort of damper-ish territory, but we will have to wait and find out.
Certainly 51's looking a bit more promising this session. Mid-grid, 11th at the moment.
Number 8 Toyota at the top of the timing pile. That is Rei Hirakawa. He started the session.
Ferrari 52nd quickest now, by the way, ahead of Rafael Marciello's BMW. So Toyota, Ferrari, then BMW, then the second Toyota. 42 minutes to go in the session.
Is that fan art in the garage?
We often do have fan art in the Toyota Gazoo Racing garage, and it's great to see.
Again, the yellow sidewalls, you can see everybody using the medium tyre. And I do feel that that is, I don't think we're going to get extremes of temperature for Sunday's race. I think that we're going to see a lot of medium and possibly a hard right, certainly hard right, possibly right sides only with hard tyres. Looking at Valentino Rossi in the number 46 BMW, Ben Keating in the 33 Corvette, fastest in the session so far, and he will be very pleased to see the 33 Corvette looking a lot more competitive. They've sort of struggled since they claimed victory in Qatar. I think over the last 3 races, that's felt like a lifetime ago. But Racing Sprint Le Mans second quickest with Eduardo Barrichello, and then the 88 Proton Mustang is third fastest.
Remember at LMGT3, though, there is success ballast to be taken into account. That's something we'll talk about a little later in the weekend as to who's doing what. Eduardo Barrichello, as you say, pops up second quickest now. So it is Corvette, Aston Martin, Mustang, Lexus, then we've got the first of the McLarens, then the first of the AMGs, then the first of the Porsches. So now top 7 cars, all different makes.
And the one that is struggling most of all is Ferrari. Their best car, François Heriot in number 21, down in 11th place, and Thomas Floor in 16th position. Now, There was a drive shaft failure on the 54 car yesterday in free practice 1, but again, it is success weight on the cars that might be having a bit of an issue there. Yasser Shaheen, he's here with his young son. And there is Yasser's car.
31 car in the beautiful Brazilian colours this weekend. 2 Brazilian drivers, one of them aboard at the moment, Augusto Farfus, and being joined by Pedro Ibrahim, who's doing most of his racing in Europe this season. He's the reigning Pro-Am Italian GT champion, racing with Paradine competition in GT World Challenge. Slightly odd parallel there, because Paradine is the team owned by Darren Young, who of course races for United Autosports.
A lap before, when we were looking at Valentino into turn 4 under braking, he was using the full width of the track and a bit more, made it look a bit nervous on entry, but he kept it together. But it was he's definitely pushing to the absolute limit on the entry phase of the braking.
Yeah, I mean, this Martin was the race last season where we started to see Valet really at one with the car, put in a very, very punchy stint aboard the BMW here last year, and he's continued that upward trajectory of form ever since.
Yeah, I think we have to get away from the fact that he's a 9-time world champion on 2 wheels, and the fact that he's now absolutely a top draw GT racer as well. He's not somebody who's, to a degree, still learning the nuances of the car, but he's certainly wrestling the most out of it. And I think actually, you know, the high watermark in terms of his competitive pace was at Le Mans, whereas a silver driver, he qualified 3rd against all the pros in the other cars. I mean, that's absolutely no questioning at all his racecraft or his inherent speed.
No, he, to be honest with you, absolutely outperformed what we expected in qualifying. What a delight to be able to say that, actually. LMGT3, we've seen it growing as a spectacle, and it's still on an upward trajectory still to this day. I mean, Darren, in your time with the Aston Martin guys, you're still active, of course, GT World Challenge America with Greg Newell?
Yep, that's it, yeah.
Next week?
Racing, yeah, we're off to VIR next week. But you look at the GT3 with all the different manufacturers now, and how healthy it makes the grid as well. When we did GT1, it was Aston and the Corvette, and occasionally some other manufacturers would pop in and out. GTE was a bit healthier again, with a few more manufacturers involved. But now that the championship is taken on GT3 as the platform for the GT category, it's superb. You've got so many more manufacturers that can come to the party, and like you say, you look at the top 6 there, 7 actually, all different manufacturers. Top 7 of the GT3 at the moment, 7 different manufacturers. So it's great to see that the competition is so close, and
absolutely
gives everyone a chance.
It does. We were talking yesterday about the difference between traditional GT3 and LMGT3. The energy management aspects of this has introduced a new challenge for not just the pros but the AMs as well.
Yeah, something I need to get my head around. You know, I'm still trying to work out. It's so different from the championship I'm doing at the moment as well, and everything else that I've done in the GT3 category. So yeah, it's probably quite difficult for the teams as well to adapt cars from championships outside of the World Endurance Championship, and then to come into running GT3s in this category as well.
Well, we saw that particularly with McLaren and Lexus at the beginning of last season. The torque sensors that they use on the drive shafts, they really struggled to keep the car reliable and not to spike on power, and that took a lot of work to get their heads around. And thankfully, by the second half of the season, both were very competitive. McLaren scored their first ever World Championship podium in endurance racing here, with a 3rd place finish last year. And yeah, Lexus have really hit the ground running this year. The car is looking a very competitive proposition, whereas if you looked at Qatar in the beginning of last season, you thought, oh my Lord, those guys are, you know, they're going to just get murdered everywhere. And one of the things I think that is most interesting, and we're seeing it in Hypercar as well as in GT3, you sort of expect it in GT3, because all the cars are so different. But then in Hypercar, they kind of are as well in the way that they make their speed. Is certain tracks favour certain cars just because of the way the car is, where the engine is, how the balance is. Sometimes you need, I mean, look at the Aston Martin here again. Yes, they've got a little bit more data on the car, they've got a bit more knowledge of running it, but no sort of handbrake turn, slow hairpins, you know, no TOSA, none of that. The overall higher speed at Le Mans, and here again, actually seems to work the better for the Aston Martin Valkyrie.
34 minutes to go, and getting into that stage of this session, drivers being cycled through. Certainly the GT driver, we saw Valentino Rossi a little while ago, who's been aboard that car. They're one of the makes not featuring at the moment at the top of LMGT3's timing and scoring. The 50 Ferrari most certainly is. 51 still in the middle order here.
And that little flurry of qualifying sim laps has sort of stagnated.
We box at the end of this lap for driver change. We box at the end of this lap for driver change, and then you need to go to the FIA scale for weight control.
Now there's another thing that we ought to talk about. In Formula One, everybody's used to drivers getting out of the car, Darren, and walking over to the garage and standing on the scales. And, you know, it's not to see who's slimmer of the week or any of that. It's because drivers must weigh 82 kilos. Now, drivers don't weigh 82 kilos, and there's, I think you'd need, you know, 2 rear Hirakawas to weigh 82 kilos. Actually, the average weight of the driver here isn't 82, it's been dropped down to 80 kilos across the car. So you have to carry ballast in the car to allow for the fact that none of your drivers probably average 80 kilos, or very few of them. So that's part of having drivers weighed as well each race, to make sure that there's enough ballast in the car to keep them legal in that direction as well. So there's, you know, another little layer of trying to even out the performance across the field, so you don't have lots and lots of cars top-loaded with really short people.
There's nothing wrong with really short people. Small, short people, they're the future.
Perfectly proportioned, we've got it that way. But
it still ends up being a bit of, you know, if you're in a car and you're sharing a car with someone who is under the weight and you are over the weight, and the ballast was going to be on the average, the bigger driver is still going to take a consequence of that.
Yeah.
So it's not always, they're trying to make it as fair as possible, but it's pretty difficult to make it completely fair.
It is, but then you also get a number of taller drivers who actually now bring the weight of the car down compared to some of the other cars. So yeah, again, it's all about just trying to level the playing field as much as possible. Number 8 Toyota heading back out of the pit lane.
Now in the hands of Brendan Hartley, and this is the car that tops the times at the moment. 1:24.695, as you can see from the timing tower left-hand side of the screen. Half a second to the good of the 50 Ferrari.
Quite a big margin at the top of Hypercar, half a second. In free practice, we had 1 second covering 17 of our 18 cars. The outlier, either the 99 Porsche or the 51 Ferrari. Yeah. At the top of the pile in LMGT3, 71 thousandths of a second is the difference between the fastest lap of Ben Keating's Corvette and Eduardo Barrichello's Aston Martin. We're going to jump down into the heart of racing Aston Martin pit. Bruce Ioani catching up with Alex Riberas. See how the Valkyrie is going this morning.
I am with Alex Riberas, driver of the 009 Aston Martin. It's been going good so far. FP1, FP2, always in the top 10, even in the top 5 at some stage. How does it look? Looks better, but how do you feel?
Well, to be honest, it's an absolute pleasure to be here in Brazil. I mean, such a special track, and for the first time here with the Valkyrie and Aston Martin Thor, it is a tremendous privilege to be driving around with such a high level of drivers. So, I mean, this weekend has been a surprise for us. It's hard to really tell what to expect because the field is very tight, as you have seen. Yesterday, basically, in 5 or 6 tenths you were from P4 to P14. So it was the midfield is very condensed, and I think today is going to be all about the details. So if we are able to capitalize on all of our opportunities and put the lap together in quali, who knows what could happen.
Okay, so have a good work session this morning and good luck for this afternoon for quali.
Thank you so much.
It's interesting, isn't it, that in 4 races they've gone from being, okay, let's see what this car actually does, to having the ambition to try and actually get in there in the mix with all the other manufacturers who've got a lot more miles under their belt.
Well, I mean, much earlier in the season, I had a chat with George Howard Chappell, who's on the brains trust behind this racing effort with the Aston Martin Thor Team Harbour Racing effort, and he told us to expect we'd start to see an uptick at Interlagos. We can see that that's very much the case now. That's not just, of course, the development that's gone into the cars. It's, as we said a little earlier in the show, just this cycle of the rule set, the balance of performance, beginning to recognise what this car has and doesn't.
Great view there, Darren, of the Aston Martin, the roof of which is lower than the window line of the BMW and the Mustang. Now, as a GT driver, having something that you literally can't see because it's lower than your door, must be an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, when you're in the GTs and you've got the prototype cars, hypercars around you, I can only go on an experience I had before, but I guess, you know, they're so super low. There'd be blind spots that you sort of miss it, but that's where your experience comes in. You need to sort of have that awareness of where the car is, even if you can't physically then see it at that point. You just need to sort of use that experience and just remember, well, he was there a second ago, so I'm presuming he's tucked under me now. So.
I'm reminded back in the day, the good old bad old days of the British GT Championship, with a wide variety of all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff. We had a couple of Ultimas, cars built in the Midlands of the UK, so low they just couldn't be seen from the mirrors. And what they did with both the cars was they ended up painting the nose of the car in a day glow colour, so there's half a chance of being seen in the mirrors.
That's a long time ago.
It's a long time ago, 20 years now.
And part of the problem, people at home think, well, why don't you just look sideways? You can't look sideways. There's all sorts of reasons why not. First of all, you're in a helmet, which is like wearing blinkers. You've only got a little letterbox to look out, so your peripheral vision is reduced. Secondly, the helmet is attached to the hands device, which stops your head rattling around in an accident. It also stops you turning your head. You can turn it marginally. Then you're in a seat which has got high wings around it, again, for protecting the driver in case of an accident, and that further limits your visibility. And then you're sitting low down and far back in the car, and quite often, you know, the B pillar is in the way, the door pillar is in the way. The visibility in a GT car is almost non-existent. You are almost literally driving it through a letterbox with only forward vision. And then you rely on the mirrors, but also on the rear-facing camera and its display inside, so that you see what's coming up behind you. Because actually being able to turn your head and look down, you just can't do it.
I think it's similar for the hypercar as well. You know, you're so restricted in the position that you are in the car. And you're right, the visibility is super low. I'm lucky I get to drive some old historic cars now. And it's so weird getting in an older race car and how much of the world you can actually see in that environment compared to what you can see in a modern racing car.
And a lot of that is because of the other big progress we've made in safety.
Yeah. I mean, you give up some visibility, but your safety has improved dramatically over the years. So I would always go with the safety improvement rather than the visibility. But it does make things slightly more difficult when you're from the outside looking in, and you're viewing the race and everything else, and you review an incident, and you're going, well, why did they not see the car, or why did they sort of turn it in? And it's like probably there was no chance of actually seeing it from inside the car.
And that's why a driver advisor is so useful in the stewards room, because you've got that knowledge of the really restricted visibility, which your layman, stewards aren't race drivers. We don't understand that. It's not second nature to us. No, of course you wouldn't see that, because we look at the camera pictures and go, well, he was clearly there. Yeah, but race driver isn't getting the camera view, he's getting the race driver's view.
And quite often when you get to see it from a different angle a couple of times, and then we all sit back and make a judgment. And it's like, well, actually, that all happened in real time with a couple of tenths or less than a tenth to make a decision, and you know, and that's what makes it interesting from the driver's perspective.
So Corvette, Aston Martin, top of the pile still in LMGT3. Then the better of the Mustangs, the 88 car. That's the one that's blue at the front. And here is the 52 Porsche. Now, we saw 92. We saw Ryan Hardwick in the garage a moment or two ago. He's one of the 3 drivers in that car. They're down towards the tail of the field at the moment, 16th with Ricardo Pera at the wheel.
Le Mans winners, remember.
Yep.
Ryan Hardwick, the bronze that helped the crew to what was a really strong performance from the first on Martin team. And
their second win of the season as well, because they won in Imola prior to that. So it's been a very strong season, and they, again, that Porsche, the Manthey Porsche, is going to be the car that everybody's got to beat if they want to win the championship.
But remember, again, I'll mention the theme of success ballast comes into play now for that car, and that is going to cramp their style a little bit on a circuit like this. It's a lot of rise and fall. It's worth that question at this point, Darren, of what kind of impact, the kind of values that you'll get with success ballast is going to have on the way that you can hustle the car, the way the car feels with 10, 20, 30 kilos of ballast.
It has an effect, you know, it has an effect in just the way the car feels, in terms of, is it lively, can you make it respond, and it just sort of deadens the car when you have, you know, a large amount of success ballast on the car itself. So, and also things like tyre wear, you know, it's significant over the stint of a tyre, and that's probably more damaging. So, yeah, the guys that are running success ballast this weekend, it's probably one of the circuits that you're going to get the biggest effect, especially with all the sort of elevation changes as well. So, yeah, well, let's see how it all plays out for those guys.
22 minutes to go. Still, the number 8 Toyota leads the way. Don't think we've yet seen proper quali sims. Whether or not we're in the window that we're going to start to see that now.
Well, I think we might do. The Porsches, right at the beginning of the session, were, as they had been in FP1 and 2, at the top of the pile. But they are currently 17th and 18th, aren't they? So last and not quite last.
At the moment, this is fractionally slower than FP2, isn't it, in terms of pace from the hypercar? So it doesn't look like anyone's tried yet to put in a pre-sort of lap for qualifying.
Well, nobody has set. In fact, the number 6 Porsche of Lawrence Vantor, fastest lap came on lap 10. Everybody else did them on lap 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, Michael, we might suggest to go softer on the rear anti-roll bar, and for the rear locking, you can try the Oscar 6 to green later for the brake attack, if it makes sense to you.
Michael Christensen sharing with Kevin Esch in that Porsche, and former world champions. Christensen starting his 70th World Endurance Championship race this weekend.
Sorry, Michael Christensen is not sharing with Kevin, he's sharing with Julian Andlauer.
Yes.
Yusuf Andlauer in the garage. Kevin Est with Lawrence Vantor. So remember, as you said at the top of the show, Martin, number of the crews here opting for 2 driver lineups for a variety of reasons. Some cases strategically, some cases because it is indeed a very cluttered motorsport international calendar at the moment. All sorts of other events going on, principally impacting here Formula E, and in the case of a number of teams and drivers, it is about where you are in your championship cycles right now. But particularly notable absentee is Sebastian Buemi. He's missed very few races.
He's managed to prioritise world endurance, hasn't he? But clearly that has been overruled.
I was staggered when you mentioned that it was like since 2012 he's not missed a single race, considering the other activities he's got in championships. Managed to go that many years and not had a crash before.
He now is the driver that has competed in most FIA World Endurance Championship races, with the supposed and sometime retirement of Christian Rido. He does pop up now and again. But Seb now with more race starts than any other person in WEC history. Watching, by the way, some progress up the order, and we are in a position now where we do have 2 cars from one team, LMGT3, in the top 6, and it's both of the Lexus. Yuichi Akiyama aboard the 78 car pops up to 6th place, and he is the first driver, first of the pro drivers, to have started 2 races in that car, which is a quite astounding stat that came after the injury earlier in the season for Ben Barnicoat. Since then, we've had Jack Hawksworth, we've had Esteban Masson aboard the car, as well as Ricci twice. So listening to what's going on for the number 12 Jota caddy.
So it's slightly different for you because you have fresh right-hand side now, fresh right-hand side, and the left-hand side they've done a single stint. And you also have full fuel. We push. It's the end of the session. It's 20 minutes to go. We push. That's where we're going to land the deck.
So that was Nominato who handed the car over to Will Stevens. So that was the brief for Will Stevens. Fresh right-hand side tyres and 1 stint old lefts. And again, Darren, that's one of the tricks that all the teams are using now to slightly negate the warm-up issue of having 4 fresh tyres, is never to have 4 fresh tyres and have at least some heat in some of the tyres.
It certainly makes a big difference on the outlap or even the first 2 laps around here, because it's a short circuit. A long circuit, you'd say, oh, my tyres are in after 1 lap. You know, I've got them pretty much in the sort of zone you need. But here, being a short track, it's probably taking more like 2 laps to get the temperature and the pressures correct.
Track limits being watched as ever by the drivers. You can see the energy remaining in the car. Now, in LMGT3, that is just gasoline. In Hypercar, that is a combination of the internal combustion engine fuel, gasoline again, and the state of charge of the hybrid system. Now, not everybody has hybrid. The Aston Martin Valkyrie, although the road car has a hybrid system, the race car does not. Again, Michelin using the medium tyre, and the hard is the option here. And you see the 20 BMW with right-hand side hards. Going to catch up with the Peugeot team. Bruce Chouani has found a fellow Frenchman to have a chat to in the form of Loïc Duval.
I am with Loïc Duval, driver for Peugeot car number 94. Thank you, sorry, I just had a blank. Just coming out of the car, how does it feel out there? Lap time seems pretty good. Also yesterday in FP2 you were also looking pretty good, so it seems that you're progressing.
Yeah, I think we are on the train, you know, after Imola and Spa. We put aside Le Mans, you know, and I think the pace is quite acceptable. We are still missing a little bit in Sector 2. Sector 1 and 3 are pretty good. It's difficult also to have a read because we are at the end of the pit lane, so, you know, to prepare the qualifying is quite difficult because it's a short track, there is a lot of cars, and it's easy to get traffic. So, but the race pace, let's say, it looks quite positive. We are together with some other cars on track, and we felt pretty strong. So, yeah, so far so good.
And also, I heard that it was Malte's first qualifying this afternoon. Do you know how he feels about it?
Yeah, I mean, you know, he's training it. We are only 2 drivers per car this weekend, so we have a little bit more time. You know, he's new in the system, but he's been doing really good since the beginning of the year. And, you know, he has to step up, of course, so it's a good opportunity to do the qualifying. Normally, for a racing driver, it's probably the best thing to do, you know, when you get the best power, the best grip overall. So he's practicing it, and he has done so far really good also, so fingers crossed for this afternoon.
I'm sure he will enjoy. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
So Malte Jakobsen at the wheel of the 94 car, there he is. He'll be doing the qualifying run in this afternoon, and who knows, maybe his first opportunity to go into Hyperpole as well. And as before, all the team will go out in, or all the cars will go out in one group, and then the top 10 will go through into Hyperpole. Just to point out that when I was talking about the energy levels in the car, of course, we don't use pump gasoline here, we use fully synthetic fuel. So Total are our fuel suppliers for both Hypercar and for LMGT3, supplying that synthetic fuel for the entire paddock.
It's renewable fuel, not
fuel.
synthetic fuel. It comes, of course, from wine waste, the waste from the wine industry. And what a big step forward in the technology of this sport that came. It's now, of course, a trend that's expanded around the world, all sorts of different championships with their solutions to, well, one of the planet's big problems. What do you do about sustaining the sport, making it relevant, making the technology move forward? We're going to see it again in terms of the tyres moving forward next season, with the new tyres coming to Hypercar, and beyond that, with news to come as well from Goodyear about what's happening with their new offerings. You're going to hear the word renewable and recyclable an awful lot more in world motorsport in the years to come. But we're right there right now with the fuel, Darren.
I nearly fell off my chair then when you mentioned wine waste. Like, who's wasting wine?
Your lifestyle has been a service to the planet.
That's not leftover wine, because again, that's not a thing.
There's no such thing. Okay. No, this is the twigs and the leaves and bits. It's stuff that would otherwise be landfill.
And yes, exactly. It's bits that they can't even use as fertiliser or anything else. So yeah, and of course we're in a country where biofuel has been a massive thing for many years. They've used cane sugar to make ethanol for many years here in Brazil, and every time you go past a petrol station or a fuel station, it'll have the price for ethanol and for gasoline. So yeah, it's cars run here on pure ethanol as well. So it's been a big deal. So as we've often said, doing our bit for sustainability, the more wine we drink,
every night,
the more Total can produce this biofuel for us.
A little bit of on board there with Kevin Magnussen having a spirited run through the LMGT3 traffic. We had a chat yesterday. We're in an era now with second and third generation races. We've got plenty of them here, Eduardo Barrichello. But there with Kevin, coming out of Formula One and finding his smile here. Great last season in Formula One for him. You were going head-to-head in his dad's heyday in GT racing. It's just something we've got used to, isn't it? Second, third generation races across world motorsport.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, sometimes the second gen is better than the first gen, but it doesn't always play out like that. But yeah, I mean, Kevin had a great Formula One career, and then he obviously had that time out from Formula One into sports cars, back into Formula One, and then obviously back now with BMW in the World Endurance Championship. And yeah, he's adapted to it. And I'm sure you come out of the pressure cooker of Formula One and you get back to just being able to enjoy racing cars and driving them, and rightly so, the smile's back on the face.
Brilliant. Just a little bit of side shade there on Jan Magnussen there, talking about the son being better than the father. Finally, you get one over on your bitter rival at GT
On this occasion, I wasn't actually implying that, but you know, you can take it that way if you like. So, but no, I had really many times on the track with Jan, and you know, he's a hard but fair racer, and yeah, it's always been good fun.
Great stuff. Under 12 minutes to go, gentlemen. It is still Tota, the number 8 car, back at the top of timing and scoring. The gaps today are definitely bigger than we were seeing at FP1 and FP2.
Well, we've got plenty of Brazilian interest in the field, and Bruce Giovanni is down in the BMW pit lane catching up with one of those interested Brazilians.
With Augusto Farfus, driver of WRT BMW. Augusto, you have a big smile on your face. Since I've been seeing you and crossing you in the paddock, here it's all smiles. You have an amazing colored car, same as the cap, basically. I saw you have lots of friends and you're racing at home, and you just won the 24 Hours of Nürburgring, so life's pretty good, no?
Yeah, I mean, being home here, being in racing together with my family, friends, in a fantastic livery. So BMW was super kind together with WRT to make a green and yellow, very Brazilian car, to raise some funds to have the charity. So very pleased, very happy with that. We are not quite with the performance-wise where we want to be, but so far the month has been very kind to me. As you said, Bruce, we won 24 Hours of Nürburgring, so sharp here in Interlagos with a smile. I'm sure tomorrow we can walk home with a smile as well.
And it gives you, for sure, it gives you more energy. So it's a long race, and you can always put all that energy into the 6 hours.
Yes, yes, of course, we don't have the speed and the pace what we want. The car feels actually pretty good, but somehow, you know, things which are not in our control doesn't let us to be as fast as we wish to. We are trying to work really hard, WRT. We are trying all different solutions, setups, and alternatives. The car is good to drive. where we are just globally too slow. But again, we will not give it up. We're going to give it all to the race. Race is very long, as you said, 6 hours, so a lot of things can happen.
Good luck and have fun.
Thank you.
He's been a great servant for BMW World Touring Cars and Endurance Racing. He's won at Daytona, won at the Nürburgring a number of times. And again, second generation Farfus, because his daughter is
one of the Dames.
Really, yes, really,
program.
really starting to light up her career. So that could be very interesting.
Worth a second mention, by the way. Extraordinary performance from BMW in the 24 Hours of Nürburgring. One of 3 back-to-back 24-hour races in the early summer, and a single bullet in the BMW gun, and it was that car that won it. He was enjoying himself. The people in the garage are enjoying themselves. There's lots of people here trackside enjoying themselves. And if you're enjoying this, remember, there are still races that you can come and watch on site this season. Tickets still available for Austin and the USA in September, Fuji and Bahrain. And trust me, you would be very welcome at any and all of them. What an extraordinary drone set that was,
Yeah, that's cool,
the BMW.
Very cool indeed. Yeah, Circuit Americas, what a fabulous facility. Austin, Texas is a great town to spend a week in or a weekend in, and COTA is a phenomenal racetrack. It's a little bit like an old school roller coaster track, even though it's so new. When we saw the design of it, the way they've used the landscape is fantastic. It produces good racing, but Darren, COTA's a phenomenal track for the drives as well. They all love going there.
Yeah, for a modern Grand Prix track, it's got a lot of soul, basically. I don't know if that's just because of the music in the town or something, but it's a fantastic circuit and great fun to race on, super challenging. That first sector, obviously you've got the braking zone up to turn 1. It's like super late, as you'd expect, but as you come down turn 2 and then 3, 4, 5, etc., it's sort of like Silverstone, Beckett's and Maggots through that sector there. So really good challenging circuit and good fun to be in Austin.
And I was really interested that they chose that track to let Brad Pitt have a run out in the F1 McLaren. And I thought, whatever he was expecting, once he got into those S's, holy moly, that's something that I don't know what he's done before that his body would not have experienced that level of G's.
Side by side between the 46 and the 95. The yellow and black McLaren, just a little bit of elbows out there from the 46.
Was it a touch? I don't know if it was a touch or just a reaction, but
yeah, no, Kelvin van der Linde using the road, but I don't think there was contact there.
Rino Sato, it was in the McLaren at that point, or number 10, Racing Spirit Le Mans. Le Mans, my apologies, Aston Martin.
Yeah, it would be a lot easier if they called it Racing Spirit of Geneva.
Yes.
And then people would say, why are they not pronouncing Le Mans right? Why are they not spelling Le Mans right?
Le Mans, in the terms of the name of the team, is not Le Mans the race, it is Lake Le Mans, which many people would know by its simplified name of Lake Geneva.
Yeah.
10 car in pretty close to the kind of colour schemes would have expected many of the years you were aboard the Aston Martins in factory livery. They've been such massive servants to international sports car racing for so long, Aston Martin Racing. And no surprise as you were walking up with us through the paddock that some of the guys, maybe some of them weren't expecting you to be here.
Quite a lot.
What were you doing here?
Yeah, there was a lot of those sort of questions, especially when I'm wearing my WEC and FIA tops. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, we got
the normal clothing.
Yeah. We got a conflation of Aston Martin test drivers because now driving the leading car and the driver steward's advisor is one of your colleagues, Peter Dumbreck, another man with plenty of Aston experience.
Indeed, not quite as much as David. All right, that you have raced and or tested every Aston Martin race car since AMR became a thing.
Yeah, it's like since 2004 when we came back with the GT1 car. So yeah, I've been privileged for that.
Let's get down to pit lane where Bruce is with Michel Gatting.
I am with Michel Gatting, driver of the number 85 Porsche. Michel, how are you getting with your foot following your injury? How do you feel? You're standing without your nice pink ones, but how do you feel?
I feel good. I'm happy to be back. Obviously, I was back last week in Imola for LMS. This was the goal after Le Mans, to be ready for LMS because we're fighting for a championship there. Unfortunately, it's going to be hard to fight for anything here, but it was hard enough to miss the biggest race of the year with Manthey. So I wouldn't want to miss any more races with them. So I'm happy to be back.
We were all very, very disappointed and sorry for you. Why do you say that it's going to be tough to fight for anything here? How's the performance going?
No, honestly, I mean, we're good. We keep fighting, but obviously it's going to be hard to win the championship. Or we still go for the single races, like always. We have done it before, so I'm sure we can do it again.
And I'm sure you're eager to do well. So good luck, and be careful, pay attention to you.
Thank you very much, thank you.
Yeah, she's had special dispensation to do the track walk in a buggy, in a golf cart, so she's getting round on sticks. Bruce obviously doesn't know what the English word for those sticks are, crutches. Crutches, it escaped him there. But yeah, Michel, and for those of you that haven't caught up with that story, at the test day, the week before Le Mans, rather unfortunately, the car was let down off its air jacks onto Michel's foot, and it wasn't just a sort of a slight fracture, it was a major breakage, and yeah, immediately no chance at all that she could survive 24 hours driving a car.
She's already raced with the brake and with the boots on with the European Le Mans Series Imola last weekend. Very solidly indeed there, but she wants to play as full a part as possibly can in this effort. Not the only one of the Iron Dames, I'm afraid, at the moment, sporting broken foot. Karen Gaillard, who is their junior drivers that is running in Porsche one-make racing in France at the moment, suffered a not dissimilar injury. So, boy oh boy, do they need their fortunes to turn around. Under 3 minutes to go in this session. Still total lead, it's 1:23.695 is the time at the top, and no sign at the moment that we're going to be seeing anybody going for really quick laps in the last couple of runs.
Well, Bruce is in the pit lane. Let's see if he's got a little more insight.
So we're at the end of the session, and actually the rubber has laid down, and we can clearly see that now the cars are braking much later, just like the caddy here, reaching about 50, maybe 60 meters. We've also seen a lot of car overshooting, but that's when it's the right time to do it. You try to push the limits. If you're overshooting now, you're finding the right place to brake, and now people are braking super late, especially the GTs. Big improvement there. Interesting, and looking forward to quali here.
Interlagos in São Paulo, and perhaps its most famous resident, Ayrton Senna. He was always a big exponent of, if you haven't gone off, you haven't pushed fast enough, but you're not quite sure where the limit is. So, yeah, fitting that that's what they're doing here as well. To a degree, you can get away with it, but again, see the Mustang alongside here as we ride on board with the number 7 Toyota. And the minimum speed in some of the slow corners for the Hypercar and for the LMGT3s is very similar. So, particularly when we were looking at the track map, when you get up to the double right-handers at the top of the hill, 6 and 7, and down into corner 8, that's really hard work getting through GT traffic, but it's also really hard work for the GT drivers, because they're going to be in a battle from start to finish, and sacrificing time on track to let some wretched hypercar through is the last thing you want to do.
100 minutes to go, top 7, the only team with both cars in the top 7, Toyota Gazoo Racing. The 8 leads the session, and the 7 down in 4th place. Around them, though, it's a really mixed bag. This is looking very close indeed, right up and down the order. Remember, there's going to be potentially a very different look to the single lap pace that we'll get from the longer runs. We were saying a little earlier in the show, just gaggle of hypercars, like a little like lap 1 and the melee. The challenges of that rear right tyre, that's going to be a theme to watch as we get deeper into the race. Challenges here too for traffic in that second sector, Darren. We've already seen...
Checker flag is out, checker flag is out.
Yeah, once you get past that sort of turn 6, the high-speed stuff, the difference between the hypercars and the GTs in the apex speed of the lower speed stuff is less of a drama. But if you can get the drive off the corner and get past before the next corner, that's key to it, isn't it? It's always the exit of those turns.
Flag is car 51, 5-1.
So the key thing is there going to be that we know the LMGT3s have been hunting in packs. They're not going to be catching terribly many single GT3 cars. It's going to be numbers of them, and they're going to be battling. It's going to be very interesting. That's going to play a major part in the race tomorrow.
And it did last year. I mean, 6, 7, 8, and then the hairpin turn 10, 11 as well. They're really, really breaking up battles when the hypercars come a-calling. There's the fastest car in LMGT3, Daniel Kadea at the wheel as the session comes to an end, but the lap was set on lap 4 by Ben Keating.
I thought it was Johnny Edgar. I think it was Johnny Edgar that
was it Edgar that was out first?
I think Johnny was out first, Ben then got in the car. Pretty certain that it was Johnny that set the time, and it was Eduardo Barrichello, wasn't it, in the Racing Spirit Le Mans car?
Yep.
Remember, with the new qualifying process, we will see both the bronze and the silver drivers involved.
And here is our fastest car overall. Toyota topped the timesheets for the first time in a while. Might have to go and do a little bit of digging and see when the last time they were fastest in the session was. Now, they did lock out the front row here last year in qualifying. So will both cars get through to Hyperpole? Well, that would be a first for Toyota Gazoo Racing this season as well, if they could. 50 Ferrari second quickest, number 15 BMW third fastest. Toyota Gazoo Racing's number 7 car fourth quickest. Then the better of the two Caddy Hertz Team Jota cars, they were fifth. Alpine's top car was in 6th position. Proton competition, their Porsche, which have been propping up the timesheets in free practice 1 and 2, ending up in 7th place rather, ahead of the AF Corsa Ferrari, the yellow car, Le Mans winning trio. So lots to think about. And Darren, the qualifying pressure of having to go through into Q2, to go through into Hyperpole, is always an extra little frisson of excitement for the drivers, I imagine.
That's that best part of the weekend, isn't it? In terms of if you're the guy that's going to be doing qualifying, to get the car, low fuel, new tyres, and the track without too much traffic on as well. You know, it's sort of party time at that point. So interesting to see FP1, FP2, number 6 Porsche was top of the pile, and then FP3 it's right at the bottom in 18th, and it just shows the different programs people are on and what they're trying to achieve and what they're running through in preparation for qualifying later.
You can see the timer running there on the cars when they're in the pit lane, and understood, although we don't often see it on camera, that when they were coming past the pit lane on track, that timer is running as well. That is going to be looked at to try and make that only happen in the race and alternate with its position. So Toyota Gazoo Racing fastest from the 50 Ferrari and the number 15 BMW. Cadillac in 5th fastest, the top Alpine 6th, top Porsche is actually the 99 Porsche. So they were going for pace, whereas 5 and 6, the Penske cars, clearly weren't. Peugeot in the top 10 as well. So 2 Ferraris, 2 Toyotas and 2 Alpine in the top 10. 51 car finding a degree of pace, and the Aston Martin, the better of the two of them, 12th quickest. Will they make it through into Hyperpole? Now, it wouldn't be the first time this season. They did make it through into Hyperpole after the first session at Le Mans. And so that will certainly, I'm sure Marco Sorensen would love to do that again. Nick de Vries, Brendan Hartley.
Yeah, Brendan, the fastest man in that session. We wait and see what comes next for qualifying. And if you've enjoyed the look of the free practice session, remember, we move to our broadcast partners in the app, of course. This is the queue for the pit lane, the autograph session.
Yeah, that will be at midday.
Well, there's been fans there since first thing this morning waiting for that. This is the LMGT3 classification. TF Sport was Daniel Cadella, we're being told, set that time. 1:34.414. Very small gaps indeed down through that. The Aston Martin, the 88 Proton Mustang, then the two Lexus with the first of the McLarens in between them, and scrolling back down, the two BMWs propping up the times there.
I'm not sure it was Junkadea because he was only in the car at the end. The time was set on lap 4.
I think it was Johnny Edgar.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And it wasn't Brendan Hartley who set the time in the Toyota either. He only got in right in the last 15 or 20 minutes. It was Ria Hirakawa who was out early on. So interesting combination of cars in the lead group. Now, of course, this is free practice. We're not sure what everybody was doing. Nobody else is probably sure what everybody was doing either. And it's not until we get into qualifying that we will find out who's really got what. We will be back at 14:35 local time. Qualifying gets underway at 14:45, and that is 17:35 Greenwich Mean Time, 18:35 if you're watching in the UK, Ireland or Portugal.
Yeah, the 51 crew just going through a practice pit stop there. Remember, if you are joining us, if you've enjoyed the new look to the broadcast with the new graphics that have been rolled out today, a whole new set as well for qualifying.
Yep, so time for autograph session, time for a little bit of lunch, and then we will get into qualifying. And as ever, our hypercars and our LMGT3s will be separated, and Hyperpole will decide the top spots on the grid. 14:35 local time, and that is 17:35 Greenwich Mean Time. Wherever you are around the world, join us then. Until then, on behalf of the whole WC TV crew, Martin Haven saying thank you for being with us. We'll be back to get spicy in qualifying.